I don't know when exactly it started. One morning, I was packing Gabriel's lunch for 7th grade. Peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, and that chocolate chip granola bar he used to fight me over if I forgot. By 3 p.m., he texted me okay, in response to a 3-paragraph message asking how his day went. That was it. Just okay. Not even a period. At first, I thought maybe he was tired. Hormones, right? Growth spurts. Middle school is brutal. I'd read all about it. But then it became a pattern. Silence. Shrugs. One-word answers. The door to his room closing more often. Then locking. That hit harder than I'd like to admit. I'm Mary, by the way. 42 years old. Single mom. RN at Mercy General in Chicago. And for the last 13 years, my son has been my world. My everything. When his dad left, Gabriel was still in diapers. I picked up the broken pieces and we built something just ours. We had inside jokes, pizza Fridays, movie marathons with popcorn for dinner. He used to kiss my cheek every night before bed, whisper, "Good night, Mama," like it was a ritual carved in stone. Now, he barely looks me in the eye. I started Googling things like, is it normal for teenage boys to hate their moms? And how to talk to a teenager who won't talk to you. Every article gave the same advice. Give them space. Don't take it personally. They're separating to form their identity. Identity. He's 13. He still can't remember to wear deodorant. The worst part wasn't the distance. It was the way he seemed. Sad. Not angry sad. Not teen angst sad. Just dull. A version of him with the light turned down. And I knew that light. I'd carried it for 9 months. I'd seen it spark when he made paper robots. Or when he used to do his science experiments in the bathtub that ruined half my shampoo bottles. So I started watching. Quietly. Like a detective. Not hovering. But present. I noticed he didn't text anyone anymore. He stopped asking to go over to his best friend Liam's house. Then one night, I overheard him through the door, whispering into his phone, "They just don't want me around anymore." But before we dive into this thrilling story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like, so that YouTube can show you more content like this. It felt like someone had grabbed my heart with both hands and twisted. I waited until he was asleep. God, he still sleeps like a little boy, curled up with one leg over the blanket. And I did what no parenting book recommends. I checked his phone. I hated myself for it. But I had to know. And there it was. The group chat he was always giggling at. Gone. A string of messages from Liam and a few others. "Dude, stop being so weird all the time. Can you not come tomorrow? You talk too much. You make it awkward." I stared at the screen until my hands went numb. I wanted to scream. I wanted to find those boys and demand they explain to me what kind of monsters mock someone like Gabriel. Someone kind, curious, with a heart so big it barely fits inside his bony chest. But instead, I just sat on the edge of the couch and cried, quietly, so he wouldn't hear. Here's the thing they don't tell you about motherhood. The hardest part isn't waking up at 3 a.m. or cleaning vomit off the back seat. The hardest part is watching your child in pain and knowing you can't fix it. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to fix him. But part of me also knew this was the beginning of that slow, painful process no one really prepares you for, when your kid starts becoming their own person, and part of that personhood includes hurting without you. Still, I wasn't ready to give up. The next morning, I made pancakes. His favorite, chocolate chip, just the way he likes, even though he pretends to be too old for that now. I left them on the table and said, "I'll be back in a sec." He didn't come out. That night, I knocked on his door. "Gabriel." Nothing. I waited. Then, "What?" "Can I come in?" Pause. "I guess." He was on the bed, headphones on, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. I sat on the floor. Not too close. Just enough. "I saw your phone," I said. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have, but I did." He didn't say anything, but I saw his eyes flick toward me. Quick. Like he wanted to know if I was mad. Or worse, disappointed. "I'm not mad. I'm heartbroken. For you." Still nothing. So I waited. Eventually, he whispered, "They said I'm too intense, that I take things too seriously." "You? Seriously?" I smirked. "You cried at the end of Finding Dory, Gabe." He laughed. Just a little. And then, he broke. The tears came. Big, silent ones. And he didn't even try to hide them. He just let them fall. I crawled up to sit beside him, and he leaned into me like he used to when he was 5, forehead on my shoulder, body heavy with sadness. That night, I didn't give advice. I didn't try to fix anything. I just listened. I'm learning that listening is its own kind of healing. And maybe, just maybe, that's where we start. I wish I could say that after that night, everything changed. That we had some beautiful turning point like in the movies, where the music swells and the mother and son understand each other again. But that's not how real life works, especially not with a 13-year-old. The next morning, Gabriel barely looked at me. He mumbled something like thanks over a bowl of cereal and went back to his fortress of solitude, his room. I stood in the kitchen, holding my coffee like it might hold the answers, and tried to make sense of how fragile everything felt. There's this idea that motherhood gets easier as they get older. No more diapers, no more car seats, no more tantrums in Target. But no one tells you that instead of tantrums, you get cold shoulders. Instead of scraped knees, you get heartbreaks you can't bandage. And instead of clinging hugs, you get distance so thick it makes the air feel heavy in your own home. I tried not to hover. I really did. But every fiber in me wanted to do something. So I started by reading. Articles, forums, Reddit threads. Oh, the rabbit holes I went down. I learned that at this stage, kids are biologically wired to pull away from their parents. That their brains are being completely rewired, with the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and empathy, still under construction. So basically, my son was walking around with the emotional wiring of a toddler and the attitude of a man who pays taxes. I also learned about social exclusion. Turns out, being left out of a peer group at this age isn't just painful, it's devastating. Middle school friendships are everything. They're how kids figure out who they are. When you get cut out, especially by people you thought were your people, it shakes your identity at the core. And still, I had to let him feel it. That was the hardest part. I started making small changes. Instead of interrogating him, how was school? Who did you sit with at lunch? Did Liam say anything? I started offering invitations instead of questions. You feel like walking the dog with me later. Want to watch that new Marvel thing tonight? Need help with math? I promised not to freak out this time. Sometimes he said no. A lot of times, actually. But a few times he said yes. And those yeses started to string together like tiny threads stitching us back into each other's orbit. One Thursday night, we were walking the dog around the block, bundled up in hoodies because Chicago doesn't care that it's supposed to be spring. The air was cold and quiet. He kicked a rock down the sidewalk like it had done something to him. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Liam told the others that I talk too much about space and that it's boring." I kept walking. I didn't react, just nodded. And they all laughed. He added, "I wasn't even mad at first, just embarrassed." "Yeah," I said. "That kind of stuff stays with you." We didn't say much more, but I knew what was happening. He was trusting me again, little by little, and I had to earn that, not by fixing things, but by showing up, silently, consistently. That night, I dug out one of his old space books, Astrophysics for Young Minds. He used to sleep with it under his pillow like it was a teddy bear. I left it on his desk, open to the page about wormholes. The next morning, it was gone from the desk. Later that night, I found it under his pillow again. Small victories. But life doesn't pause for you to emotionally reconnect with your kid. Work was chaotic. We were short-staffed at the hospital, and I was pulling back-to-back shifts. I was running on caffeine, granola bars, and that panicky guilt that lives in your chest when you feel like you're failing both at parenting and surviving. One night, I got home after a 12-hour shift. My feet felt like they'd aged 20 years. The house was dark. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and found Gabriel still awake in the living room. The TV was on, but the screen was paused on the home menu. He looked off. "Hey," I said softly. He didn't answer. I sat beside him, even though every muscle in me screamed for a hot bath and 10 hours of sleep. He finally turned to me and said, "I think I don't know who I am anymore." I didn't cry, but God, I wanted to. "You're 13, I said. "You're not supposed to know." But I did. I thought I did. I liked space, and coding, and building dumb little games. But now they all say that stuff is lame. So I tried to stop. But it feels worse. I took a breath. This was the part where I usually offered a pep talk, or a story about how I used to be awkward too. But I didn't do that. Instead, I said, "You know what's weird? Adults go through the same thing. We just hide it better." He looked at me, confused. Seriously, dead serious. I'm 42, and there are days I still ask myself, is this it? Is this who I am? Life's full of moments where you feel like you're unraveling, but it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Sometimes it means you're growing. He didn't say anything for a while. Then, "I hate pretending to be someone I'm not." "Then stop," I said. "Be weird. Be space-obsessed. Be exactly who you are. The right people will find you." I didn't know if it was too much, if he even heard half of what I said, but he leaned into me, just slightly, and that was enough. Enough to know he was still in there, still my boy, just hidden under layers of pain and hormones in middle school. After he went to bed, I stayed on the couch and cried, not out of sadness, but release, like the storm had passed, or at least slowed down enough to let the light peek through. That weekend, Gabriel asked to go to the Science Museum. Voluntarily, he spent 3 hours dragging me through every exhibit, explaining black holes and planetary rotation like his heart had been waiting for someone to ask. And you know what? I didn't check my phone once. There's a moment, usually right before dawn, when the world goes completely still. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like you're the only person awake in a city of millions. I sat in that silence one morning, a full mug of coffee warming my hands, staring out the kitchen window at a quiet street, dusted with the remnants of last night's rain. It was 5:15 a.m. I should have been asleep, but I couldn't stop thinking about Gabriel. The Science Museum trip had cracked something open between us, but the air between better and back to normal was still thin. One good day didn't erase the ache of 100 silent dinners. I kept reminding myself, progress isn't a straight line. Sometimes it doubles back on itself, takes a wrong turn, stalls in traffic, then slowly starts moving again. That week, something shifted again. Not in Gabriel, but in me. At work, we had this training on adolescent mental health, timed for spring, when, apparently, rates of depression and anxiety spike in teens. A psychologist from Northwestern gave the talk. She was sharp, composed, and had a way of saying hard things like she was offering you a glass of water. She said something I haven't stopped thinking about. Teenagers are drowning in stimulation, but starving for connection. That one sentence echoed in my chest like a bell. Because she wasn't just talking about them. She was talking about us. Mothers. Parents. We're scrolling to numb, overworking to cope, multitasking ourselves into burnout. And somewhere along the way, we forget how to see our kids, like really see them. And they stop reaching for us, thinking we're too busy, too distracted, too disappointed. I drove home that night, the city lights flickering against my windshield, and all I could think was, I need to slow down. Not fix, not force, just be with him more. So I made changes. I started leaving my phone in the bedroom when I got home. I cut back on extra shifts. I carved out space, real, unhurried space, where he and I could just exist in the same room. Sometimes it meant sitting in silence while he gamed. Sometimes I'd ask to join him, and he'd hand me a controller with an eye roll that somehow said, "Fine," and "Don't embarrass yourself," at the same time. It was progress. Clumsy, imperfect progress. One night, I heard him laughing in his room. A real laugh. Not the polite chuckle he gives when I make a mom joke, but a belly-deep, sudden kind of laugh. I peeked in. He was on a call with someone, headphones on, smiling with that spark I'd missed so much. He saw me in the doorway and mouthed, "What?" I smiled. "Nothing. Just glad to see you laughing." He rolled his eyes, but he didn't shut the door. Later that night, as we were both brushing our teeth, I asked who it was. "Lucas," he mumbled through the foam. "He's new at school. Kinda nerdy too. Likes coding." I didn't push, but I felt this quiet, almost holy sense of relief. He found one of his people. It reminded me of a quote I once read. We don't need a crowd. We just need a tribe. One person who gets you can undo a whole year of being misunderstood. I started noticing other changes too, subtle ones. Gabriel started coming out of his room without being summoned. He lingered in the kitchen longer, ate breakfast at the table instead of on the couch. He even started wearing actual deodorant without me having to threaten him with public embarrassment. And then, something happened. It was a Saturday, warm for April. I was folding laundry when I heard the front door open. "Gabriel?" I called. "Yeah, it's me," he answered. And then I heard it. Another voice. A second pair of footsteps. I froze. I peeked around the hallway and saw them. Gabriel and a boy about his height. Brown hair, big glasses, wearing a hoodie with the NASA logo. "This is Lucas," Gabriel said casually, as if introducing a new goldfish. I smiled. "Hi, Lucas." "Welcome." "Hi, ma'am," he said shyly. "Ma'am." Lord, I felt 1,000 years old. They disappeared into Gabriel's room, and for the next 2 hours, all I heard was laughter, keyboard clicks, and the kind of joyful chaos that only happens when two kids are building something that doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. I made popcorn, knocked on the door. No response, so I left it outside, a silent offering. Later that night, Gabriel came to the kitchen for water. I was wiping down the counter. He leaned on the fridge and looked at me for a moment. "Thanks for the popcorn." I smiled. "You're welcome." "Then," he added, like it cost him a little vulnerability tax. I told Lucas I used to think I had to change to fit in. He said he feels that way too. "That's brave," I said. Saying that, he shrugged. "I don't want to fake it anymore. I'd rather have one real friend than 10 fake ones." I nodded. "That's a lesson some people take 30 years to learn." He smirked. "Like you," I laughed. "Exactly like me." That night, after he went to bed, I walked into his room just to look at him. Something I hadn't done in weeks. Not like that. He was asleep, sprawled across the bed, one sock on, one sock off, hair a mess, breathing softly. I sat on the edge of his bed, the way I used to when he was little. I remembered how, when he was 4, he once had a nightmare about getting lost in a grocery store. He'd cried and cried until I held him and whispered, "I will always find you, no matter where you are." And now I realized, sometimes, finding him wasn't about holding on tighter. It was about trusting him enough to let go. There's a quiet shift that happens in a home when something begins to heal. It's not loud or obvious. You don't hear bells or applause. It's in the way the air feels when you walk in the door. It's in the sound of music coming from a closed bedroom, or the distant laugh of a child who hasn't laughed in a while. By late April, my apartment had that shift. Gabriel had stopped hiding. He still wasn't back to his old self, and maybe he never would be. But I was beginning to understand that was okay, because he wasn't going back. He was going forward, becoming someone new, a little more complicated, a little more guarded, but also more real. And I was trying to do the same. That Saturday morning, I made pancakes again, not because I thought it would fix something, but because it was tradition, ritual, the kind of small, steady thing that makes a house feel like home, even when everything else is shifting under your feet. Gabriel came out of his room without being called. He was wearing a hoodie and pajama pants, hair sticking out in 10 different directions, eyes still heavy with sleep. He sat down, poured syrup over a ridiculous stack, and asked, "Did you ever get bullied when you were my age?" I almost dropped the spatula. "No one ever asked me that," I said, after a pause. "But yeah, I did." He looked up, waiting. I was 12. There was this group of girls, cool girls, cheerleaders, and they decided I wasn't something enough, not pretty enough, not quiet enough, not rich enough. They'd accidentally bump into me in the hallway, talk about me like I wasn't there. "What did you do?" I stopped talking in class, stopped raising my hand. I tried to disappear. He nodded slowly. "That's kind of how I felt too." "Did it go away?" he asked. I took a long breath. The people did. The feeling. That took longer. He was quiet for a bit, then said, "I think I still feel it, like I'm always being watched, judged." I put my hand on the table, open, not reaching for him, just there if he wanted it. He didn't take it, but he didn't pull away either. "I wish I could tell you it gets easier," I said, "but I can tell you, it gets different. You get stronger, your skin gets thicker, and one day, you stop needing their approval like oxygen." He didn't say anything, but I saw something shift in his shoulders, like some invisible weight had been loosened, even if it hadn't fallen off yet. That weekend, I made a bold move. I signed us up for a coding workshop at the Chicago Public Library. parent and teen pairs. Saturday afternoon, free pizza included. When I told Gabriel, he blinked at me like I'd suggested we go skydiving. You don't even know how to code. I don't, I said, but I figured maybe I could learn from you. He stared at me for a second, suspicious. It's gonna be full of awkward nerds. I'm counting on it. He snorted. Fine, but don't try to be funny in front of people. No promises. The workshop was exactly what you'd expect. Fluorescent lighting, folding chairs, and the smell of stale pizza in the air. But to my surprise, Gabriel came alive. As the instructor explained basic Python commands, Gabriel started showing me shortcuts, correcting me gently, then not so gently. By the second hour, he was leading our little table. I watched him interact with other teens, more confident than I'd seen in months, explaining variables like he'd been waiting for someone to give him a whiteboard and a pointer stick. He even cracked a joke, and one of the other kids laughed. Afterward, on the walk to the car, he said, "That was actually kinda cool." I wanted to cheer, but I played it cool. "Yeah? You seemed in your element." I was. And then, casually, he added, "Lucas and I are working on a game together, like a real one." We started sketching it out. "That's amazing, Gabe." He shrugged, but I saw the hint of pride in his eyes. It felt like watching someone come back to life. But that night, the wind shifted again. I was in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, when I heard the slam, Gabriel's door. A minute later, he stormed into the living room, red-faced and teary. "They're still talking about me." "What happened?" He tossed his phone onto the couch. "Liam posted a video from months ago, me trying to explain something in science class. Everyone's laughing in the comments, saying I sound like a baby professor." My stomach dropped. He paced the room like a caged animal. I knew I shouldn't have trusted anyone. I knew it. I stood, but didn't get too close. "I'm so sorry, Gabriel. I'm deleting my account," he said, yanking at his phone. "I'm done. I don't care. I wanted to say a million things. That it would pass. That Liam was an insecure little punk. That one post didn't define him. That this would all be meaningless in a few years. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, 'Do you want me to sit with you while you do it? Or do you want space?'" He paused, breathing heavy. Then, "Sit. But don't talk." So I sat, quietly, while he wiped his phone clean of apps. His hand trembled. I wanted to hold it, but I waited. And that waiting, that was the hard part. After a long silence, he whispered, "I don't want to be like them." "You're not. I just want to be me, even if that means being alone." "You're not alone." "I feel like I am." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Then I'll remind you." As many times as it takes. That night, he fell asleep on the couch, curled into himself like he was trying to shrink. I covered him with a blanket, turned off the light, and sat there for a long time, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. Motherhood doesn't have a manual, but if it did, I think one of the chapters would be titled, "How to Hold Your Child Without Using Your Hands." When you become a mother, people tell you a lot about the early years, about burping techniques and sleep training, and how to introduce solid foods without turning your kid into a future picky eater. But no one ever tells you what it's like to watch your child lose pieces of themselves and not be able to pick them back up for them. That Monday, I dropped Gabriel off at school in silence. He didn't ask for music. He didn't even say goodbye. Just stepped out of the car, hoodie up, eyes down, and disappeared through the double doors like a ghost no one else could see. I waited there for a moment, my hands still on the steering wheel, watching the doors as if he might turn around. He didn't. I pulled away, drove 2 blocks, then pulled over and just cried. The kind of crying you don't plan, the kind that leaks out from somewhere deeper than sadness, somewhere closer to helplessness. There's a specific grief that comes when your child is hurting and the world keeps spinning anyway. By midweek, I noticed changes again, but not the good kind. Gabriel was quieter, not in the way he'd been a month earlier, not the detached, avoidant quiet, but a sunken, distracted quiet. His eyes didn't focus when I talked. He stopped eating breakfast. His posture changed, smaller, like he was folding in on himself. By Thursday night, I knew I couldn't keep waiting for it to pass, so I sat him down at the kitchen table. He looked exhausted, circles under his eyes, skin pale, fingers twitching against the edge of his hoodie pocket. "Gabriel," I said gently, "I need to ask you something important." He didn't answer, just looked down at his lap. "Are you feeling safe? In your body? In your mind?" His lips tightened. Then, a barely audible, "I don't know." That's when I knew. This wasn't just teenage angst. This was something deeper, and I wasn't qualified to go it alone. So I did the scariest and most loving thing I could do. I got him a therapist. I'll be honest. I hesitated. I worried he'd feel ashamed, or resist, or think I was labeling him. But when I told him, he surprised me. "Okay," he said. "I think I need it." His voice cracked on the last word, and mine cracked back. "We found someone local, Dr. Halloran, a child and adolescent therapist in the West Loop. Warm voice, gentle eyes, soft office with fidget toys and a lava lamp that I caught Gabriel staring at like it held all the secrets of the universe. He didn't want me in the room for the first session. I waited in the lobby with my coat still on, pretending to read a magazine from 2 years ago, the kind with articles like, "Top 10 family dinners even teens will love." The irony wasn't lost on me. 45 minutes later, he came out. I stood up too fast. "How was it?" He shrugged. "Fine." But he didn't look angry, or shut down, just tired, like he'd finally put down something heavy. That night, over dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, comfort food 101, he said. "She asked me to draw how I feel most days." I put my spoon down. "What did you draw?" "A planet, small, floating alone. No sun." I nodded slowly. "That's honest." She said it's normal to feel like that when you're going through a shift, that sometimes we go quiet before we grow. I smiled. "She sounds smart." She said I'm smart too, he added quickly, "and that I don't need to change who I am to be accepted." You really listened to her. I wanted to. She wasn't just saying it to make me feel better. She meant it. Something inside me exhaled. And if you are enjoying this story, help us out by subscribing to the channel and giving a like. Over the next few weeks, therapy became a rhythm. Wednesday afternoons. He started showering more regularly. He began eating full meals again. One night, I caught him writing code on his laptop at the dining table. Not because it was homework, but because he wanted to. "What you working on?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "A little simulation game. About space travel." I blinked. "That's very on brand." He smiled. "A real one. Lucas is helping with the sound design." "He's still around?" "Yeah, he's good people." There it was. His tribe. I gave him his space. Sat on the couch. Let the clack of the keyboard fill the apartment like music. And then came the day I didn't expect. It was a Friday. He came home from school, threw his backpack on the floor, and said, "Liam apologized." I turned slowly. "What?" "Yeah, like a real apology. Not just, 'Sorry you're upset.' He said he felt bad about the video. Said he didn't think it would blow up like it did. That he was trying to be funny, but it went too far." I studied Gabriel's face. Calm. Not euphoric. Just grounded. "What did you say?" I said I appreciate it, but I'm not ready to be friends again. And maybe I never will be. But I don't hate him. I stood there, stunned. He reached into his hoodie and pulled out a folded paper. I wrote that in therapy, about how I'd respond if I got the chance. Dr. Halloran helped me think it through. I opened the paper. It wasn't long, but it was clear, kind, strong. "You're growing, Gabriel." He looked up at me, eyes clear. "I know." That night, I took him out to celebrate. Not anything huge, just a walk to our favorite little diner, the one with the neon sign that always flickers and smells like melted butter and late-night stories. We sat in the booth by the window. He ordered pancakes for dinner. I didn't judge. As we ate, I asked, "What's the game called? The one you're making?" He thought for a second. "Orbit." I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because it's about two travelers stuck in each other's gravitational pull. Even when they drift, they find their way back." I stared at him for a long time. "That's beautiful," I said. He shrugged. "It's just science." But we both knew it wasn't. Spring bled into early summer almost without warning. Chicago was doing that thing it always does around May, teasing you with sunshine one day, then smacking you in the face with a surprise cold front the next. Still, you could feel the season turning. The air was softer. The days stretched longer. The trees outside our apartment, the ones that had stood bare and forgotten all winter, were suddenly alive with green. And so were we. Gabriel had started leaving his door open. It might not sound like much, but if you've ever lived with a teenager, you know what a door means. It means separation, control. It's a line drawn in the air, and when that door starts to crack open again, even just an inch, it means something's shifting, not back to what it was, but forward, into something new. One night, I walked past his room and heard him playing the game he'd been building. Not just testing it, playing it. There were sound effects now. A little pixelated astronaut bouncing from planet to planet. I stood there, listening, until he called out, "You can come in, you know?" I blinked. I didn't want to interrupt. "You're not." So I stepped inside. The walls were the same. Posters of constellations, a corkboard full of hand-sketched game maps, sticky notes with little programming reminders like, "Don't forget gravity," and "Check for collision errors." But something was different. The energy, the light. "Want to try it?" he asked. I laughed. "Me? Isn't there a steep learning curve?" He handed me the keyboard. I made this level easier. For beginners, I sat beside him, played, died within 30 seconds. "You didn't tell me there were lasers." "Exploration is part of the point." I looked at him, that half smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. It was the same one he used to give me when he was 7 and would hide behind the curtain, convinced he was invisible. "You're really proud of this, aren't you?" He nodded, quietly. "It's the first thing in a long time that feels like mine." That word sat with me. Mine. I knew what he meant. There are so few things in life, especially in middle school, that feel truly your own. Everything else is filtered through what people think of you, expect from you, project onto you. But this game, this world he was building pixel by pixel, it was his, unapologetically. Later that night, I got a message from his therapist, Dr. Halloran. Just a short note. "Hi, Mary. Gabriel shared his progress today and wanted me to tell you he's been feeling more like himself lately. You've done a beautiful job giving him room to grow. Thank you for trusting the process." I stared at those words. Thank you for trusting the process. God, that hit hard. Because there were so many nights I didn't. So many nights I wanted to bulldoze the process, break into his silence with solutions, drag him out of his darkness by the collar. But I didn't. I waited. I trusted. Even when it hurt. Even when it terrified me. A few days later, something unexpected happened. Gabriel invited me to his school. "Lucas and I are presenting our project at the STEM showcase," he said. "It's not a big deal or anything, but if you wanted to come." I tried to play it cool, but I must have smiled too fast, because he added, "Don't make it weird. I'll be completely silent," I promised. Invisible. The showcase was in the gym. Folding tables lined the walls, posters and laptops and trifold displays everywhere, kids buzzing around with nervous energy, teachers trying to herd parents with clipboards and donuts. Gabriel stood next to Lucas, both in matching black hoodies, their booth titled Orbit, a game about gravity, isolation, and finding connection. I almost cried right then. They had a laptop set up, a controller, and even a printed story summary, where they described the main character as a lone traveler, learning to trust again after being abandoned by his crew. When I looked at Gabriel, he was standing tall, confident, explaining mechanics, answering questions, smiling, like he belonged. One of the teachers, a lanky man in a NASA tie, came up to me and said, "Your son has a gift. He's got real design instincts and emotional depth." The storyline of that game honestly moved me. I nodded, swallowing down the pride that was climbing into my throat. "Thank you. He's worked really hard." When we got home that night, Gabriel dropped his backpack and flopped onto the couch with a satisfied sigh. "You were incredible today," I said, sitting beside him. He shrugged. "It wasn't a big deal. It was, you shared something that came from inside you." "That's brave, Gabriel." He looked down for a second, then asked, "Do you think I'm different now?" "What do you mean?" "Like, after everything, am I still me?" I took a breath. "I think you're more you now than you've ever been." He nodded, slowly. "Sometimes I miss who I was," he said quietly, "before all of it." "I do too," I said, "but I also love who you're becoming." He leaned his head against my shoulder. Not for long, just a few seconds. But it was enough. Later that night, I found a note on my pillow, handwritten, folded like he used to do when he was little and would leave me secret messages about things like running out of cereal or needing more batteries for the Xbox controller. This one just said, "Thanks for not giving up on me." Even when I gave up on myself for a bit, I held the note to my chest, sat there in the dark, and let the quiet wash over me. Motherhood, I was learning, wasn't about always knowing what to say or having the right answers. It wasn't even about fixing the pain. Sometimes, it was just about staying close enough that your child could find their way back, even if it took weeks, even if it took tears, even if you had to watch them drift, and trust that love, like gravity, would eventually pull them home. Summer arrived like a gentle exhale, warm, slow, and full of unscheduled hours. The kind of summer I hadn't experienced in years. No swim lessons, no camp pickups, no frantic scramble to plan playdates or theme park outings, just long days, late dinners, and the occasional whir of a fan spinning in Gabriel's room while sunlight spilled across the floor. He didn't shut the door much anymore, not always wide open either, but cracked, ajar, accessible. There was a message in that, one I didn't need words to translate. He was letting me in again, carefully, slowly, but intentionally. One Saturday morning, I found him asleep on the couch with his laptop still open on his chest. His mouth hung slightly open, and his right hand still rested on the keyboard like he'd fought to stay awake. The game was running, the little pixel astronaut floating near a glowing blue planet, a new element I hadn't seen before, a second character, a smaller astronaut following just behind. I smiled. He hadn't said anything about updates lately. He didn't need to. I tiptoed away, let him sleep, and made pancakes. Again. He woke up around 10 and wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Did you see the new level?" he asked through a yawn. "I saw the little astronaut," I said. "Looks like they found someone out there." He grinned, still half asleep. "It's Lucas. He wanted to write himself in." "How poetic," I teased. Gabriel shrugged, but his smile lingered. "I think I'm gonna release it," he said after a beat. "Like, for real, online." My eyebrows lifted. "Really? That's a big step." "Yeah, I mean, maybe no one plays it, but I want to put it out there. I think it's worth something." That phrase landed like music in my chest. I think it's worth something. Not I am worth something. Not yet. But this thing he made. This reflection of himself. And that's where it starts, isn't it? With learning to value even a part of who you are before you can believe in the whole. We spent that week preparing his release. I helped where I could, setting up the account, writing the game description, even designing a silly little logo together. Nothing fancy. But he made the decisions. He chose the screenshots. He wrote the tagline. Orbit, a game about drifting, finding, and learning to stay. The night it went live, he sat on the floor of the living room, refreshing the download page every 5 minutes. 2 downloads, he whispered. "Hey, that's 2 more than 0. "Yeah, wait, 3. I grinned. "You're famous." He rolled his eyes. "If this gets to 20, I'll make stickers." By midnight, it had 42. But somewhere in that joyful blur of new confidence and coding victories, life, as it always does, reminded us that healing is never a straight line. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the call. The hospital. A double shift opened up. Critical understaffing in the pediatric wing. I hadn't been there in nearly 2 months. I'd cut my hours way back to focus on Gabriel. And truth be told, I didn't miss it. But we needed the income. And part of me missed that version of myself too. The nurse, the problem solver, the woman who knew how to handle chaos with calm. So I said yes. I left a note on the fridge and a text on his phone. Long shift, back late, dinner in the fridge, love you. I didn't hear anything back, but I didn't expect to. He was 13. Texts weren't currency unless they involved memes. When I got home after 14 hours on my feet, my back aching and my mind running on fumes, the apartment was silent. I expected to find him asleep, headphones on, door closed. Instead, he was sitting at the kitchen table, elbows on the wood, hands folded, eyes red. "Gabriel," I said, alarm rising. He looked up, blinking slowly. I didn't know if you were coming back. My heart cracked in two. What? Honey, of course I was coming back. He looked away, jaw tight. I know. It's stupid. I don't know. I had this feeling, like something bad was going to happen. I kept checking your location. I even called the hospital, but they wouldn't say anything. I knelt beside him, still in my scrubs. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I should have told you more clearly. I didn't realize it would scare you. He nodded, but didn't say anything for a while. Then, I think I'm still healing from everything. I held his hand. Me too, I said. You're not the only one. He looked surprised. You? Of course. When you started pulling away, I thought I lost you. And when you were hurting, and I couldn't fix it, I've never felt more powerless. He blinked hard, like he was trying not to cry again. But you didn't give up. Never. I don't want to go back to that place, he whispered, where I felt like nothing I did mattered. You don't have to, I said. You've come so far, and when the shadows come back, because sometimes they do, you'll have more tools now, more truth, more people, more stickers, he said with a crooked grin. I laughed through the tears. Yes, definitely more stickers. He leaned against me, tired, but lighter. That weekend, we did something we hadn't done in a long, long time. We left the city, just the two of us. A weekend cabin rental in Wisconsin, near a lake so quiet it felt like it had been waiting just for us. No Wi-Fi, no reception, no escape into screens or distractions. We built a fire. We cooked hot dogs. He showed me constellations from the dock, pointing out Saturn like it was an old friend. I used to think space was lonely, he said. Yeah, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just quiet. Waiting. For what? For someone to send a signal back. I looked at him, his silhouette under a velvet sky, and saw a boy who was no longer lost, just searching, and strong enough now to do it without disappearing. Summer was winding down. You could feel it in the air, a certain stillness that hung above the sidewalks, as if the whole city knew that change was coming again. The light had softened. The days were just a little shorter, and the nights, for the first time in months, were cool enough to pull the blanket a little tighter. August in Chicago has always felt like the closing credits of a movie you didn't know was ending, and for me and Gabriel, that metaphor hit a little too close. He was starting 8th grade in 2 weeks, his final year before high school, his last year, technically, as a kid. I didn't say any of that out loud, of course. I didn't want to spook him with nostalgia or make him roll his eyes, but inside me, it was like a countdown clock had started, and with every tick, I found myself holding on and letting go at the same time. He was ready. I wasn't, but we were going anyway. One Sunday afternoon, we were cleaning the apartment together. Not because I asked, because he offered. We'd somehow fallen into the habit of doing little tasks side by side. No big speeches. No forced bonding moments. Just coexisting. Folding laundry. Reorganizing the bookshelf. Even sweeping under the fridge, which he dramatically announced was a horror show no one should ever have to witness. I handed him a trash bag and said, "Welcome to adulthood." We laughed. That easy kind of laughter that only comes when the tension between two people has completely dissolved. Not vanished, just softened into something livable. He was taller now. Not by much, but enough to make me do a double take when he stood beside me in the hallway mirror. His voice had dropped a bit more. His hair was longer, and his eyes, they had that mix of boy and man that made my heart ache in the most bittersweet way. That night, after dinner, we sat on the balcony, 2 folding chairs, a couple of root beers, the city breathing slowly beneath us. It had become our ritual, a way to mark the day's end. No screens, no noise, just us. "I'm thinking of switching schools next year," he said suddenly. I turned to him. "High school?" He nodded. "I want to go where Lucas is going. They've got a better computer science program. And a space club, like a real one." I smiled. "I think that's a great idea. You're not mad." "Mad. Gabriel, I'm proud of you." He looked down at his hands, picked at the label on his bottle. "I used to be scared of change," he said. "Still am sometimes. But now, I don't know. I kind of want it." I nodded. "You've worked hard for this new version of you." He paused. "I don't think I'm a new version. I think I'm just more me. That hit me harder than I expected. All this time, all the tears, the silences, the therapy sessions, the late-night talks and early morning pancakes. It hadn't been about changing him. It had been about clearing the fog, pulling back the layers, making space for the real Gabriel to surface again. Stronger, sharper, softer in the right places, and more him than ever before. The next day, he got an email. His game, Orbit, had been featured on a teen coding site. A teacher in Oregon was using it in her summer class. A small YouTuber had reviewed it and called it a love letter to anyone who's ever felt alone in a crowd. He showed me the comments, blushing and pretending not to care. But he cared. I could see it. He cared deeply. And suddenly, this game that had been born out of a place of isolation had become a bridge, a signal, a connection point for other kids like him, floating in their own little orbits, searching for someone to tell them they weren't weird, or broken, or too much, just real and worth something. That night, he did something I'll never forget. He asked if I wanted to play the game from the beginning, the whole thing, all the levels, from the very first lonely asteroid to the final stage, where the player, after drifting for so long, finally finds a stable orbit with another traveler. We sat in his room, side by side, the glow of the screen lighting our faces. I played. He coached me through. I kept dying on level 3, and he groaned every time, but never with impatience, only affection. You don't have to rush, he said. It's not about getting there fast. It's about exploring. Story of parenting, I muttered. What? Nothing. When I finally reached the last level, something unexpected happened. The screen faded to black, then a message appeared. To the person who helped me find gravity again. Thank you. Love, G. I turned to him, stunned. He looked straight ahead, eyes on the screen, but his voice was clear. I wrote that months ago. I didn't know if I'd ever show it to you, but now I do. I couldn't speak, so I just leaned in, wrapped my arm around him. He didn't resist. He rested his head lightly on my shoulder, taller than he used to be, but still my boy, still orbiting home. Even now, as I write this, I know there will be more storms, more doors closed, more silences. He's not done changing. Neither am I. That's the thing about being a parent. It never ends. It just evolves. But I also know something else. I didn't fail. He didn't disappear. And love, the real kind, doesn't vanish when things get dark. It waits, patiently, quietly. And when the moment is right, it steps back into the light, just like my son did, just like I did, together. If you like the story, let us know by leaving a like and your comment. And don't forget to subscribe to be part of this community of reflection and love. Thank you very much, and see you next time.